So I don't have my notes in front of me. Did you want me just to share about Profit First, or did we want to do questions? What was the format you wanted to follow today?
Well, we would like if you can make, a small, introduction about your book, and maybe you can share some specific key points of the book, and then we can open for questions, no?
Perfect.
So I understood that we have 1 hour or less than that.
Great. So I'll present for maybe 20 minutes. Does that sound okay? And then
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Perfecto. Okay. So I'm Mike.
Hello, Mike.
Hello. Hola. I am in New Jersey, right outside New York City, and I've lost my voice a little bit. I just got back from a presentation, literally got in here in the office about 2 minutes ago, and was so blessed to receive a standing ovation. So you can hear the group. I filmed it as I was presenting on Profit First. That's me just a few minutes ago.
Awesome.
And what I want to start off with is this was a group of contractors, people that do electrical work and plumbing here in the U.S., but there was people visiting. The event was in the U.S., right down the road from me, but people visiting from throughout the world. And there were actually, we had some hermanos from Mexico, along with folks from Australia, and throughout there at this event. What I found is that Profit First is really the international system for cash management. Now, the traditional formula, and I don't have a PowerPoint slideshow, so I'm going to use this as my PowerPoint. I'm going to draw some things out that I think you may appreciate. But the traditional formula for profitability is sales minus expenses equals profit. And so I kind of scrolled it on here. It may not be the easiest to see, but this formula that I'm showing you right here is the traditional formula for profitability. You must incur sales, right? For whatever business you're in, you must drive sales. You must subtract out the costs that you incur, and what's left over is profit. And it's the bottom line is what they call it here in the States, perhaps where you are too. And often it's considered last. Many businesses, almost all businesses, are focused on growing sales, growing the organization, incurring expenses to facilitate the growth. And profit is something that we consider maybe once at the end of the year. I know for my own business, I lived under this old formula for the longest time. I was in computer systems. That was my first business. The second business was in computer crime investigation. And what I did was I was trying to grow my business. I was frustrated that there was no profitability at the end of the year. But I said, if I stick with this long enough, there'll be profitability. And even though I had lost money and I was borrowing, the business was losing money, I was borrowing from friends and family, and even pulling money out of my own home by refinancing it to keep my business afloat. I knew one day the profit would come. And sure enough, about 5 years, maybe it was 4 years into my first business, I met with my accountant, and he said, congratulations, after all of this hard work, you've made your first profit. It was, I'll never forget the number, it was $15,000. He had circled it with a big red pen as he congratulated me. And I felt this excitement build up in me. I was so grateful that I achieved this. And then I asked him, I said, where is that money? I want to spend it. Yeah, thanks for laughing, because he did too. I don't know if accountants in Mexico laugh like accountants up here in the States, but what they often do is they'll start laughing and then they start snorting when they're like really laughing at you. So my accountant, he says, you made $15,000. And I go, where is it? And he goes,
Been there.
He goes, you don't have that money. That's an accounting profit. And that felt like a knife to my heart. And what I want to share with you today is we're going to talk about what I call an entrepreneur's definition of profit. Is that an emprendedora, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, más o menos, right? Más o menos.
No, his spice is perfect.
So he said that that's the, what we're going to talk about is the entrepreneur's definition of profit. My commitment is that you are going to have cash in your business at the end of every transaction, at the end of every day. And that's going to be available for you as a business leader, as a business owner, as a business entrepreneur, to take this money out. And what we're going to do is we're going to first change this formula. Here's the problem with this formula. Now, the funny thing is every book I've read, everywhere in the world that I've discovered or saw this formula talked about, it's always presented this way. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands of books that share this formula. It's part of our vernacular, the words we use. We call it the bottom line or the year end or the final take. Profit comes last. But here's the problem when something comes last. Humanity knows when something comes last, it's not important now. Something comes last gets delayed. It's the mañana syndrome, as they say. It always gets put off another day. Yet in this formula, we're told that sales and expenses come first. So what do most business owners do? We are doing everything we can do to grow our business. We keep on spending money. Now, we don't like to say spending money. That's uncomfortable. So we say we like to invest in our business, to grow our business. And to facilitate that, we need more sales. And for the sales to continue to grow, we have to improve our business. And we stay stuck selling simply to cover expenses. Profit is the last consideration. And for most businesses, never gets taken. And what I believe is wrong is this formula itself. Because when something comes last, we interpret that as being not important. Think about like your familia. I mean, would you ever say, I love my family so much, that's why I put them last? Of course not. Of course not. You say, I love my family so much, I put them first. Or say you had a health scare. Would you ever say, oh my gosh, I was rushed to the hospital for a heart problem. Starting today, I'm going to put my health last. You know, of course not. What you say, today, my health comes first. When something's critical, it comes first. When it needs to be addressed, it comes first. And when it can be put off or ignored, it comes last. And this formula teaches us sales and expenses always comes first. Profit can be ignored. So what I want to do in our presentation together, and I know you've read the book, but the fundamental concept is this new formula. It's sales minus profit equals expenses. Sales minus profit equals expenses. And what we did here is simply, it's called a variable swap. It's a mathematical term, but basically we took expenses that were up top, we moved them down, we took profit that was down here and we moved it up and we changed the variable. So profit now gets subtracted out and expenses are the remainder. And what this teaches us is that in this new formula, and by the way, before I say this, mathematically, these formulas, if I can get it presenting correctly, these formulas are identical mathematically. So the results of this equation is exactly the same as this equation mathematically. But from a behavioral aspect, this new formula where profit is in the top, where profit comes first, is behaviorally radically different. Because what I'm saying is every time you have a sale in your business, we're going to take a predetermined percentage of that money, allocate it toward profit, and then the remainder will go toward expenses. That's the core concept. And so in practice, how you're going to use this in your business, starting today, I hope, and maybe you've already started it, is every time you have a sale, we're going to take a predetermined percentage, a portion of that money, allocate it toward profit, remove it from the availability of our business to our business, and then we'll know what's truly available to run our business. It's called reverse engineering. We're saying we want to achieve a certain degree of profit, say it's 10 or 15% or whatever the number is. And if you take this profit, this is what you must do in your business to make the business work. I don't know, has anyone heard, just show your hands if this is true, have you ever heard of the pay yourself first principle? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
I see some hands. Okay, good. I see the hands going up. Excellent. This model, what I'm showing here, is based upon the pay yourself first principle. Pay yourself first is a savings principle. And the idea is as you generate income for yourself, your salary, that you'll take a percentage of that money and put it toward your retirement. Pay yourself first. I'm simply the guy saying this applies more to our personal lives. This applies to our business. And when we treat our business this way, we'll make our business healthy. Now, how we do it is we set up multiple accounts. And what I found, and this is true throughout the world where I've traveled, there are basically 5 foundational accounts that every business needs. So I'll draw them out as I read them. The first account we're going to talk about is the income account. And the income account acts as a serving tray of money for food. Actually, it was funny. I was in Merida recently, a year back or so, and it was Dia de Muerta. Did I say that correctly? Dia de Muerta. And muertos. Dia de Muertos. And I'm there, and we had a big dinner together. They tres leches and all these wonderful things. And what the food was served off of a serving tray. Here's what the host didn't do. The host didn't say, hey, everybody, grab your knife and fork and just take your own food. Everyone fight for it. Of course not. The serving tray was used to give a portion of food to every guest at the table. And that's how serving trays work. In your business, we're going to set up 5 accounts, and the first foundational account is called income. The income account is an account that's used specifically as a serving tray of cash for your business. As money flows into your business, I want you to put it in the income account, but never eat, meaning never use the money on that tray to serve your business. It is a serving tray of cash, and the food will be a portion from it. So what happens is money will flow into this income account, and then based upon percentages, we will allocate money to the other accounts. So money will come into the income account, and then we'll allocate a percentage of the money toward profit. And these are not, I repeat, not necessarily the right percentages for you. It's inside the book, the ones that I suggest. But just making an example here, I'm going to say that I'm going to allocate 10% of my profit from the income account. The income, I'll allocate 10% to owner's compensation and so forth. So profit, let's talk about this account. The profit account is a reward for being a shareholder in your business. What I mean here, as a business owner, I would like to congratulate you. You've done what 93% of the world population will never do. You've decided to become a business owner. It's only 7% of the world population will do that. There's billions of people that will never do it. They don't have the drive, perhaps the intelligence, the commitment, and the loco-ness to start a business. Yeah, that's kind of close, right? That's they don't have that, and they shouldn't become entrepreneurs or business leaders, but you have. So what you've done is pretty miraculous. As a reward for starting a business, you are going to get profit. Profit is a reward system to thank you for starting a business. I own public stock. I traded here in the US on the New York Stock Exchange. I own Ford. It's not like, anything special. I own 100 shares. I'm not a big investor. But Ford sends out a quarterly profit distribution. And last quarter, I got my check. I think it was $13. Actually, I know exactly what it was. $13.23. And when I got that check and was holding my hand, I didn't say, oh, I don't deserve this. I need to plow this back or reinvest this in Ford, give it back to them. And quite frankly, if every shareholder would simply return the money we got, we can grow Ford even more. We can build new buildings and hire new employees. Of course, I didn't do that. What I did say is I'm an investor in Ford. The value of the stock could go up. That's what I'm hoping for, but it could also decline. I have taken risk. And as a result, they're rewarding me for taking that risk. That's my money, and I can use it for my purposes. That's the intended use of profit. As you grow your business, what I would like us to do is every quarter, every 90 days, a percentage of that money in the profit account is going to go out to you to reward you. It is not to be reinvested in the business or plowed back. It really frustrates me when people say, oh, the business was profitable, but we put the money back in the business and spent it all. If you spend money, it's not profit. It's an expense. And if you put money into a profit account and then spend it, it was never profit. You just played a little bit of a shell game. The intended use of profit is to reward you, the shareholder of the business. So that's the profit account. The next account is called owner's pay or owner's compensation. I suspect for many people in this conference call we're having right now are what's called owner operators. It means you own the business, but you also work within the business in some capacity. Maybe you manage the books. Maybe you run your manufacturing plant. Maybe you do the big sales calls. But I suspect for most of us, we're doing something as a CEO or president of our organization. We're running the business. Owner's compensation is the pay you receive for serving that role. Just like if you replace yourself, if you had to hire someone else, this is the money that you'd be used to hire someone to replace you. So we're going to pay you a salary. So I want to make sure you understand the difference. Profit is a celebratory account. It's a distribution to shareholders as a thank you for starting the business. Owner's compensation is payment for your salary for doing the work you do. Next account is called tax. Now, I have yet to visit any country. Tell me if this is true in Mexico. I've yet to visit any country where the government doesn't stick its long hand into our business and pull money out, right? I presume the Mexican government does the same thing. In the U.S., it sticks its big sticky hand in and pulls out money in taxes. But here's the thing. We've started our business maybe for a couple of reasons. Hopefully, you realize the impact you're having on the world. Like, the world needs what you do. And I hope you're delivering the best of yourself to it because we need you. Entrepreneurs facilitate everything in this world. And I hope you also started it, not just because you're of service, but hopefully you also started it for financial freedom. I think the economic wealth of our world will be economically driven always by entrepreneurs. The more successful you are, the more successful we all are. We all need wealth, and it comes from entrepreneurs. So I hope you started your business for freedom and to achieve wealth. And part of what I call financial freedom is not worrying about taxes. And here it's every quarter, every 90 days, the government comes with its long hand and sticks it in and says, all right, business owner, give me your money. Particularly year end, April 15th is our year end. That's when the government really gets hardcore and says, pony up. And you have the same thing. Our businesses can be, and I believe should be, responsible for our taxes. Now, this is regards to formation, and I don't know the laws where you are, but I do know this. I've yet to visit any country where the business cannot pay the taxes for the owner. And there's ways you need to structure it, and you should talk with an accountant, but the business can reserve your taxes. And when the taxes are due, either pay the government directly or you pay the government out of your own pocket, and the business pays you back for that expense. That's what financial freedom is, not worrying about any financial responsibility, including taxes. The last account is called owner's comp. It's called OPEX. OPEX is for the operating expenses of the business. This is what the business must live off of. Now, just to make it really clear, if say $2 million, I don't know what your revenue is, and I know it's going to be a variety of different size businesses, but say $2 million of money flows into the income account over the year. Remember, the income account is a serving tray. We're going to allocate money based upon percentages. So I would take that $2 million, and in this example where I'm putting 10% toward profit, I would put $200,000 in there, and I would put $200,000 into the profit account, $200,000, that's 10% of $2 million, into the owner's compensation. And if you're taking a salary of $200,000 US and you are also distributing profit to the shareholders, which may just be you, of $200,000, you're going to probably have a large tax bill. So we're going to save $300,000 for your tax liabilities. In the last account, $1.3 million, that's the money that's available to run the business. Most entrepreneurs, myself forever, thought that I had a $2 million business, meaning I could spend up to $2 million. But now with this system, I realize I only have $1.3 million. This is the money I must run my business off of. These accounts, by the way, you set up at your bank, because, and tell me if this is true for you, how many of the people in the room, I just want to do by a show of hands, log into your bank accounts with some regularity, maybe monthly or weekly, or even more frequently, daily, to see how much money is in your bank accounts? Just raise your hand if you do that. Does anyone check their bank accounts? I see some hands go up. Okay, off. If you raised your hand, that's excellent. If you raised your hand, you demonstrate the behavior of most entrepreneurs. What I do, here's my phone. I did it today. I logged into my phone to see how much money I have. And what I do as an entrepreneur, when I see the money, I say, this is how much I have to spend. If I have a single bank account, and that's true for most people, when money comes into my business, say $100 comes in, I thought I had $100 to spend. But now, by setting these accounts up at my bank, and it's critical, you must set this up at your bank. And I know it's not easy, and it may take a day to get set up, and there's going to be a pain of signing documents and double checking and triple checking. But if you do this, then as the money flows in, you realize you don't have $100. $10, 10% is reserved for profit. I'm also going to pay myself, the owner. I reserve $15, and I have $65 to run my business. By continuing the established behavior that you already have, you raised your hands, you said you logged into the bank account, you'll know exactly how much money is available for what purpose before you spend it. It's called the envelope system. Has anyone ever heard of the envelope system? Raise your hand if you're okay.
Yes, from your book.
Because you read my book, that's funny. So, well played. So the envelope system is something from prior generations. In fact, my mother, who's from Germany, brought this to our house when we were raised as children. And what it was, she worked at a local factory, actually. If you could see out my window in my office here, you can see the factory way in the distance. She worked there part-time. And when she would get paid, she would divide her money up into different envelopes, like letter envelopes. And one of them had the word food on it. Another one said to give back to our church. Another one to pay the rent or the mortgage for the house. And she'd divide the money up based upon percentages. When she went food shopping, for example, she would drive to the supermarket and she would grab the food envelope and then open it when she arrived at the supermarket and shop only with the money that was in there because it's the only envelope she had. Now, the interesting thing is she didn't always have the same amount of money. She had what's called volatile income. Sometimes she'd work overtime. There'd be more money coming in. She would divide the money up. They're based upon percentages, so each envelope would get some more. Other times she was sick, so she would have less money available to divide up, and so each portion would be slightly less. But when she went food shopping, she always had enough money because she worked with the money that was in there. So even though the amount of money she could spend varied, she would shop sometimes more frugally, rice and beans. Other times she would get, some more expensive food items when there was more money. That's what this is. This is the envelope system. Your business will tell you what's available to operate your business. And here's a key lesson. When you look at your operating expenses, if you don't have enough money to pay your bills, that's your business telling you you can't afford your bills. There's something fundamentally flawed in your business. You see, we are reverse engineering profit. If you want to have serious profit, if you want to pay yourself the way you deserve to be paid, you need to be paid. If you never want to worry about taxes again, this is what you must do. It's necessary. So, and then when you can't pay your bills, and I know it's going to happen, if you set the system up and you can't pay your bills, that's your business talking to you and saying you must do one of two things: cut the costs. And a lot of businesses have more costs than necessary. We have over 150,000 businesses now doing profit first. It is taking off. And what we've learned, we've done many case studies now, what we've learned from these businesses is that when they can't pay their bills, they need to cut costs. And most of them can cut costs of about 10% like that, almost instantly. So I would believe when you implement this system in your business and you can't pay your bills, there's probably some costs. That software subscription you're using, that equipment that just sits in the corner and doesn't get used. Maybe, sadly, many businesses are overstaffed. We have some people that aren't producing, but we keep paying their salary and we don't let them go because we feel connected to them. And actually, it's really hurting the business, hurting actually everyone at the business by retaining costs you can't afford. So sometimes, as difficult as it is, you even need to remove employees. Got to cut costs. And any business can do 10% or even 15 or 20%. What we also found, though, is the other opportunity is increase margins. So if you want to be more profitable, you cut costs, but the bigger opportunity is to increase margin. And those questions are, how do I get paid more for what I do? How do I change or repackage my offering in a way that people excitedly will pay 10 or 20% more? So we reevaluate how we're spending the money or how we're generating money by addressing the margins. Okay. The last thing I want to share, and then we can do Q&A because I know you've read the book. And there's a lot more to the system. As you know, there's this concept of frequency and getting into it. We call it the 10-25 rhythm. There's other elements of removing temptation. If profit stays at your bank for too long, it's just a matter of time before we steal from ourselves. So we can address that in the Q&A. But the last thing I want to share is the concept of starting slowly. We have, I think, 5 or 6 coaches throughout Mexico, people, I think, in South America, throughout Central America. We have someone in Quito, I believe, that's doing Profit First, that's teaching it in Ecuador. And what we found is that the businesses that successfully use Profit First do the system or start the system slowly. I know we just dug into it and you've read the book, but I also suspect you may feel overwhelmed. I wouldn't be surprised if you feel skeptical. I don't know your business. You could say this probably won't work for me. And maybe you're right. But here's what we found. Almost every business that's implemented it slowly has been successful in achieving more profit than they've ever had. This is the key. I wouldn't suggest that you go to your bank today and set up these 5 accounts. They may just sit there. You may not get to it. If you start allocating money with those percentages, it may be too much and it may be hurtful actually to your business. But here's what I suggest everyone does. It's a very simple process. It only takes 2 steps and you can complete it today if you wish, or by tomorrow, the latest. Step 1 is whatever bank you work with today, if you like your banking relationship, go and use that bank and just add 1 new additional account. I make it a form of a savings account. Its intention is to hold money. And if you can online or wherever, nickname it Profit. So step 1 is set up the account and nickname it Profit. Step 2 is take 1% of any of your income starting today and put it in the profit account. And what I'm saying, if $1,000 US dollars comes into your business, take 1%. That's $10. Because listen, I know this. I don't know your business, but I do know if you can run your business off a $1,000 deposit, you can also run your business off of a $990 deposit. That amount is so minuscule, it's inconsequential to the operations of a business. But it's highly consequential, important, to the effects on profit, because now you'll have $10 in that profit account. And you told me by a show of hands, you do what almost everyone I know does. You log into your bank accounts, and tomorrow, once you get this set up, and you allocate that 1%, you'll see that you have $10 of profit. And then I suspect, like everyone else, you'll continue to do the process and ask yourself, what if I move to 2% profit or 3%? What if I add the owner's comp account now and the tax account? And over time, many people that implement Profit First do the process over 3 to 6 months, maybe even a year or 2 before they have the full system in place. But by tomorrow setting up that 1 account and allocating 1%, you will become permanently profitable by tomorrow morning. And when I say profit, I'm talking the entrepreneur's definition of profit. You will have cold, hard, beautiful cash sitting, waiting in that bank for you to move your life forward as an entrepreneur. So that's the basic overview of Profit First. And I went a little bit longer. That was about 25 minutes, I think. I would love, if it's appropriate, we can do some Q&A because I want to make sure that you understand the concepts.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, Mike, wonderful. We have a question from Ivan. And he had a question that if I have more than 2 companies, should the profit be considered separate for each company, or should it be considered as a one and just have 1 profit for those companies?
Yvonne, that's a wonderful question. And the answer is actually 2 different setups, because we don't know which business is the one that's really profitable and if the other one's not. And if we blend the accounts, it starts to cloud this. So here's an example. We worked with a company that makes or services executive jets, these super expensive planes. And we went out there and they actually will sell airplanes. They will also do repair work on the airplanes. And they also did another service where they would transport critical organs. If someone needed a heart replacement, you could rent their jet and they would fly this heart from wherever they got it to the recipient. And they were struggling with profit first because their profits were so low when they had the combined accounts. We met with them and we said, these are 3 separate businesses. And they weren't actually separate companies. They were just blending it. So we set up the 5 accounts for each company. I know now we're talking 15 accounts. That sounds crazy, but they are 3 businesses. We need to do it. What we found is selling jets, which they thought was the most profitable thing, was actually costing them money. They found that maintenance was a break-even business or so forth. But transporting critical organs was a windfall of money. They were making the most money in that category. So we realized that it was actually time for them to stop doing one of the businesses, and we removed it. And they continued to do the critical organ transportation. They reduced costs significantly because they needed fewer jets, and they didn't need a really nice, beautiful jet. They actually needed a simple cargo carrying jet. So they're able to get jets that were way less expensive, required way less maintenance, and then their profits totally soared. So you absolutely need to set this up for each company individually.
Okay, perfect. Do we have one question from here?
Here in Mexico, it's a little difficult to open several accounts. And I think you're saying that open first one account, I think is a very great idea.
Thank you.
And another thing, I have done 2 MBAs and they never show you this formula. They always show you salesmen, less expenses, bottom line.
Yeah.
The money never is there. That's what I laughed because my accountant, we had several businesses. Where is the money? I mean, where is the money? It's here in the numbers and the accounting, but the money was not there. So
yeah. So those accountants who say the system won't work, I actually understand why. Because those accountants and bookkeepers, and this is true globally, have been trained on the old formula. They've spent years of school studying the system that says profit comes first. And they said it over and over and over again. And they believed it. And I get it. And the funniest thing is, logically, it makes sense. You have sales, you subtract out the expenses, and what's left over is profit. It makes logical sense. It doesn't make emotional sense. And that's what accountants don't understand. Entrepreneurs, actually all of humanity, are driven by emotion and behavior. So this system is a behavioral system. And if your accountant says, I won't support this, I don't believe in it, if you want to, it's a little bit gutsy, you can say to your accountant, well, you tell me that profit comes last. Let me ask you, how many of your clients are really profitable? All of them? You know, how many are achieving 10% profits every? How many of them are doing quarterly profit distributions? And what I found is, for most accountants, the answer is 0. They're like, well, none of them make money, but that's their problem. They don't get it. No, entrepreneurs do get it. The accountants are using an old system. I was in Mexico, the city, your city, and I remember meeting with some people. And I do want to challenge you that the banks are difficult. There are certain banks in Mexico, throughout Mexico, that are much more accommodating. And often it's the smaller banks that are more accommodating to setting up multiple accounts. I also want to acknowledge it isn't easy, as far as I understand, to set up accounts in Mexico. So I do understand the challenge. I just want you to push through it. We have a couple people down there. One gentleman's name is Rodrigo Ladaga, and then Juanjo, I can't remember his last name. If you want connections, I can introduce you to these people. They have helped Mexican entrepreneurs set up accounts and can make some introductions for you. So I can do it later.
Actually, I read your book and I gave it to a friend of mine, and he asked me to help him to change his business. And in 3 months, he really changed his business.
I love it.
17 years, he didn't have a profit. In 3 months, he had a profit.
Wow. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Listen, we can change. I believe it's the responsibility of yourself and myself to become very profitable. I think the more profitable you are have the ability to be of greater service to your clients. I believe you can teach your own employees how to become more profitable in their own personal lives. And therefore you bring wealth to your employees, to their families, to your community, your country of Mexico, and in our world together. So I'm so proud of you and grateful that you've done that. And I hope you all do this for yourself. I mean, we can change the world through wealth. I truly believe that.
I agree.
Thank you. Well, we have a question from Aureliano Rivera. Aureliano, the mic is open. Are you ready? Oh, sorry. Aureliano.
Él lo está cerrando ahora.
Okay. No, it's here. Aureliano.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I was unaware. I have a question. We have a lot of operations in both Mexican pesos and US dollars.
Yeah.
So my question is, do we need to have both 5 accounts for each currency? Or
probably. So your Mexican pesos are held in Mexico. Is your US currency held in the US?
No, it's in Mexico.
And then do you convert the US dollars to Mexican pesos?
Sometimes, not all times. Sometimes I need to pay in US dollars. Sometimes I need to pay in pesos.
Yeah. So
sometimes I receive pesos and I need to pay dollars. Vice versa.
Yeah. And how much of your money, percentage-wise, how much is maintained in Mexican pesos versus US dollars? Is it?
It's about 80% US dollars versus pesos.
All right. So here's what I do. If it's 80% US dollars, I would first set the system up just for your US dollars and leave the Mexican pesos in that one account or however you manage it now. Because the more accounts we set up, the more intimidating it can get, the more difficult it can get. And over time, as you build the muscle of profit, you'll be better and better at this and take on more accounts naturally from my experience. But to get started, I would just do it for the US dollars, really figure out the system for US dollars. And then in the future, I would do the entire system for the Mexican pesos. Because you may find that while you're doing 80% of your revenue with US dollars, you may not be true, but you may find that 80% of your profit actually is Mexican pesos. So we don't know which one's better. And the only way we're going to figure it out is if we separate them. But I'd start with the big one first, in this case, US dollars, and then later in the future, introduce it to the Mexican pesos.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
We have one question here.
Yeah, I have a question. So in your book, you mentioned that we often struggle to keep our hands off the profit that we have.
Yeah.
Which are some good ways to stopping this from happening?
Yeah. So I struggle with it. And I suspect many people in this room, because it's very tempting to put the profit back into the business, which is a grand mistake. Remember this. If you are taking from your profit account to support your business, you are not profitable. That money was never a profit. It was an expense. You simply called it profit for a period of time. And people will use terms here saying, oh, I'm plowing back my profit or reinvesting it. I call nonsense on that. That's totally a lie. It was never profit. You're just playing a shell game, moving money around. It's only an expense. So we do need to remove the temptation. The one form is to find another bank. And the goal here is to find a bank that is inconvenient, not easy to access. And when profit comes into that account we talked about here in the system, what we'll do is take a percentage or take all that money and transfer it out of this bank into a second bank over here, and we will store the money. The goal is for you to have a very difficult time to get access. No online bank accounts, so on the internet, no checks, no card to pull money out. This is one that you have to physically drive to pull the money out, because I want you thinking long and hard, why are you pulling profit out? And the only reason to pull profit out, remember, is to reward the shareholder. If you're taking it out to buy a present for yourself or get rid of your own personal debt or to save for your retirement or to go on an amazing vacation to New Jersey to visit me, as an example, and we have a dinner together. I'm just saying we have a dinner together, that's all. if you decide to use the money that way, that's the right use of it. So we want to remove temptation. So the easiest thing is to set up a second bank account. Another way, which is kind of funny, but it works, is I actually share my profit with my family. Not all of it. My wife and I discussed this, and when the profit comes out, it's for our benefit because I started the business. But I also felt that my children, I was gonna say hijos, is that right? My hijos?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting good. Yeah, niños, hijos. Yeah. So my children are not investors in my business, but they did invest sacrifice. I travel a lot. I am not home nearly as much as many other fathers. So that's an investment, a sacrifice that they've made, not necessarily even desired to make, but they did. So my wife and I agreed it's appropriate to share a small amount of the profit with them. Well, I've been doing this with my children their entire lives. And they ask, hey, how's the company's profits going? How we doing, Dad? So they're really interested in the business profits. It's a really interesting, fun way to keep my focus on profit because my children are expecting it. So there's a couple tips.
Well, Carmen Bandres have a question. Carmen?
Hi. No, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. I just and I'm very happy for this. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think it's Adrian Cosio from Puebla have a comment and a question too.
Nice to meet you, Mike. Thank you for sharing this knowledge. It is amazing. As a coach, I think it is a great tool just to help some other entrepreneurs to be profitable. But I have two questions. The first one is, you talk about a percentage in terms of an account for the owner, the operational owner. Why is it a percentage and not a fixed payment as an operator?
Great question. So it actually ends up being a fixed payment, and we reverse calculate the percentage. So, for example, if I said in this business that I set up here that I want to that I have $2 million of expected annual revenue, and I say I want to take out $100,000, I want my owner's pay to be $100,000 US. I would then look at the percentage and saying, what percentage do I need now to achieve 100,000? Well, 10% of 2 million is 200,000. So I could reduce this down to 5% and I'd be allocating enough money. But what we suggest in reality is don't do 5%. Let's do 7%, for example. So I'm saving about 140,000 US into this account all the time, but I only draw out the equivalent of 100,000. So as the money goes in there, I'm putting more money in than I'm pulling out. And now I can pull out a consistent income. So as the percentages vary, and sometimes not as much, deposits will come in, the percentages don't vary, but maybe the income drops down a little bit, that I have enough cushion in the account to take out a steady draw. So the percentage, just hopefully I say this effectively, the percentage is used to build a cushion of money to support a regular, predictable salary. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
The other question would be, let's suppose we have an entrepreneur with a profitable business of 5%, and then you start using the profit first methodology, and you increase the 5% to 8%. In terms of methodology, I understand it, but you can stress the operational expenses in order just to reduce operational expenses so you can increase the profit, right?
Yeah, so typically, yes. If we're trying to increase, so how these things divide up is these top three accounts are usually for the full benefit of the owner. Profit is like a shareholder distribution. Owner's comp is their regular payroll, and then taxes is what they have to pay to the government. This is the owner's tax responsibility. So this has to offset OPEX. So if you increase profitability, in most cases, you'll try to reduce operating expenses. But sometimes you'll find that the owners are not reserving nearly enough profit, but they pay themselves so much. and actually it's pretty common that owners take out as much money as they can for their own personal income. And then they live what they call a large life. They spend every penny getting that expensive Mercedes and BMW, which I know is popular in Mexico because every time I drive around, I see all these European cars.
Yeah.
You all love your Mercedes. So, and so do we. And so do we. So sometimes, and this is tough to coach people through, but sometimes entrepreneurs are living a life that's too large for their business, actually many times. And so we may have to take some money out of owners' pay, shift it to profit. And even though both will benefit the owner, the way they behave is different. Owners' pay is coming out every week or 2 weeks on their payroll, so it becomes an expected standard. Profit, we distribute only once every 90 days. It's more like a surprise or a gift. Even though they know the money's coming, you can't often sustain your ongoing bills off of a profit that comes out only every 3 months. So they'll start adjusting your lifestyle down. So that's another way to increase profit is by reducing owners' compensation. It is an ego punch to the owner, but it's often the best, healthiest thing they can do.
Yeah, so you can or you increase your sales, or you reduce your owner's payment, or you reduce your operational expenses, but you cannot do that from 1 month to the other one.
That's right.
Sometimes it takes time. So how do you implement this in a real situation?
All right, so you have to do, first of all, you're más inteligente. You nailed it. That's exactly right. You do adjust all these different levers. And that, if you're going to be coaching Profit First, and we also have a certification program in Profit First at Profit First Professionals if you're interested in learning more how to get certified. But you're right on it. There's these different dials we can adjust, owner's comp, cut the cost, increase the sales to address those things. But we have to do what's called a rollout plan. And I don't think I share a very basic component in the book, in our certification with the full system. But the essence is you start with your historical percentages, and every business has historical percentages. They just don't know what they are. So as a coach, you go in and you analyze their business and say, historically, you've taken zero profit. Your pay has been 12% of your income and so forth. Then every quarter, meaning every 90 days, we start making these adjustments to those different accounts. Can we increase sales? Can we cut down costs a little bit, OPEX? Can we increase profit? Do we need more money for taxes? We adjust these dials very slightly. Then we wait for 90 days, see how it plays out, and then we do another adjustment. For many businesses to achieve the goal they want, it's about 12 months and sometimes 16 months of adjustments. Very slow adjustments. If you make a fast, big adjustment, often it's too abrupt. It hurts the business, and then the owner says, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this, and they give up on the system, which is a tragedy. So you have to adjust slowly, and we call that the rollout process.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, Mike, I don't know if we have time for the last question or 2 more questions.
I have about 5 more minutes before I got to.
Okay. So Nuria Garcia, is open, the mic.
Okay. Hi. I don't know if my question is too basic, but I would like to know your definition of income, because we're talking about income and how it's distributed. But when you, for instance, if I have a distribution company where I already have a stock of products that I already bought at a certain price, when I sell them, I cannot, since I already have the stock, I cannot reduce its cost to get better margins for my
I understand.
profit.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So these are what we call the 5 foundational accounts. But for many businesses, you will want to add another account. And for example, we may want to set up an account in your case that we call inventory. And what you have to do is look at what percentage of cost is your inventory in relation to your historical income. So I'm going to still say you do $2 million, but I'm going to say your inventory cost is maybe 70%. I don't know what it is. And if that's true, we then go back through all these other numbers and divide up the remaining 30% for the other accounts. Okay. So now your profit may go to, say, 5%. Your owner's pay may be 15%, and your taxes may be 10%. Or actually, now I'm getting the numbers wrong. But you can just play with the numbers. I know it's all scrolled on here, but you have to set up an inventory account. Income comes in of $2 million. We take 1.4 to replenish the inventory we have. We divide up the others accordingly. So that's how you would do it. We also, and I'm not sure if it's in La Ganancia es Primero, but we have a system we call the adjustment to real revenue. And this is another more advanced topic that we don't have time for. It may be in the book. But we have trainings around that too.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, Mike, thank you. Thank you very much. It was very nice. Have a big applause. The last thing is if you can put your book, because we are going to take a picture.
Oh, yeah, you're going to take a picture with me?
Yes. With your big smile.
Look, I have it too.
Okay. Vamos, volteen todos allá donde está Denise. Please. Ready. Wow, great. We will share to you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you again. And thank you very much to have your book in Spanish. You know, we are so happy when we find, you know, an author that really wants to have the book in Spanish, because we are a huge, you know, area, and we have here a great entrepreneurs too.
Well, it's an honor that I've been able to visit Mexico so much. Honestly, I love your country, and I think the entrepreneurial spirit in Mexico, throughout Latin America, is extraordinary. The world is starving for your success. So I want you to be very successful, and I want you to invite me down so I can visit your beautiful country more.
Yes, definitely. But
yeah, thank you.
One comment, sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
Because not only we are here, people from Mexico, but there are people from Panama, from Guatemala, from Costa Rica,
Excelente.
From Argentina, from Peru, from all Latin America, Brazil.
Wonderful. Oh, Brazil. All right.
Yes, from Brazil too. Yes.
Well, wonderful. Yeah, Latin America is amazing. I've traveled through Central America, small parts of South America. I've not been to Brazil yet, and it's just been a wonderful experience. So in my broken Spanish, I want to say, hermanos y hermanas de Mexico, gracias por todo.
Thank
you. Adios.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.